So as I've mentioned several times in this project, I take images quite a bit. This is my son, and I want to kind of just walk through a little bit of and reflect upon the process that I do when I download a picture to some software that I use, and I sort of edit that picture and work with that picture to create something else out of it. So this is an image straight out of the camera. It's just a raw file from my camera. I do use a relatively nice one, but that doesn't always mean that the image is perfect, of course. The camera is not the only thing doing work. I think the camera is doing a little bit of work for me, but there's quite a bit of things that I have to pay attention to when I'm taking a picture as well. And just to know, I'm not using any sort of photography terminology because I don't really know it. But let me sort of explain a little bit in my own words what's happening here. So this is straight out of the camera. I purposely blurred the background before I actually took the image, so I used a particular type of lens that does that for me. So that's one advantage to sort of knowing what lenses to use when I take a picture like this. So I'm doing all of that before I actually take a picture. You can do some of that after you take a picture, but it just saves time sort of knowing what lenses to use and what places in order to sort of just do that ahead of time. So I've blurred the background with the lens on purpose, and I've put him in a particular place. This is our front porch actually, but I've put him in a particular place where I know more light is going to be on his face than not on his face. So there's sort of, and the light is sort of as evenly dispersed as I think it can make it. If you notice, it's a little darker on this side than it is on this side, and that's just because of where the light's coming from. But if I turned him a little bit, then he wouldn't be fully, there would be a little bit different of a background. So all those sort of adjustments and that are made while I'm taking the picture and while I'm placing him in a particular place. But I think overall it's a decent raw image as far as what it looks like straight out of the camera. I am going to show a little bit of adjustments I make after I take it and things that I do to the picture, and things that I sort of work with the image to sort of highlight what's there. So let me sort of show that a little bit here and explain the best I can and kind of reflect upon that. So again, this is straight out of the camera. Let me show you the edited version of that one. Looks like that. A couple of things that you probably noticed straight off the bat. In the original, there's a little yellowing that's happening for various different reasons, where I've placed him, the time of day it is, the type of light that I'm getting from the picture. Those are things sort of outside of my control and outside of, I think, the camera's control. Light's a very hard thing to control when you're taking a picture, so you have to sort of work with what you have a little bit. But there's a little yellowing happening. The nose is actually the focus of this image, which is not on purpose. Children move quite a bit when you're taking pictures of them. So while I set all my camera settings the best I could do in that moment, I am taking a picture of a child and having to sort of be aware that he's moving quite a bit while I'm snapping pictures. So even though I made adjustments on my camera to make his eyes the focus, because of just shifts that he does with his body, the nose is actually the focus. And that happens quite a bit, especially when I'm taking pictures of my kids. And I'm self-taught, so I haven't perfected that process by any means. But if you notice, the yellowing and you notice the focal point have been adjusted. So here's how I adjusted for that. I changed the coloring a little bit in the background. I did that. I wanted to take that yellowing out considerably because I put him in this blue shirt because I kind of wanted underneath to see the contrast between his hair and the blue in his shirt. And if the background has that sort of yellowing tone to it, that contrast isn't as apparent. So I really wanted the blue and the orange to just oppose with each other. So I kind of needed to take that yellowing out in order to highlight that or bring that out a little bit more. So I've done that. I also changed the focal point to his eyes here. So I made those, I sharpened those quite a bit. I sharpened his hair quite a bit to bring out the color. I adjusted a little bit of the amount of light in his face, which is kind of hard to do post picture. But if you notice, I've done that. I don't want, in a picture like this, I don't want the whole thing to be too much exposure or too much light in it. I want sort of the background and his shirt and everything to have less light, and I want the light to be focused on his face. So I have adjusted that a little bit here. And I think you can see the differences between those two things. So let me show you another one of something I've done similarly. This is the original, straight out of the camera, and this is the edited version. I like this one better. And I've done similar things. Changed a little bit of the light focus, changed the contrast of what, or I've changed the detail on his face to bring the eyes out a little bit. I've changed the backdrop coloring. I've done several things. Again, I won't walk through every single thing because it probably takes a good 10 plus minutes per picture. But all of that, for the most part, I do that by hand. I know sometimes people will download presets off the internet or something that kind of does that work for them, but those are actually not as helpful for pictures, I think, as people think they are. It's kind of just a process of doing it by hand and learning what works. Let me kind of show you a little bit of that. For this picture, let me show a couple things. I want the eyes to be more in focus, so I do that by hand. And actually, let me use this tool. I do that by hand. I just, doesn't have to be perfect generally, but for that, I circle what I want, and I'm going to go ahead and sharpen it. This is a lot of sharpen tools. For this one, I'm going to use the unsharp mask tool. That just gives me a little bit more control over what is sharpened. So I change the pixels a little bit. I change how much of the eye is detailed. And I think now you can see the difference between the two. Now I've done this one quite a bit, just to show you. I probably, if I was doing this for a person, if I was doing this for like a client or something, which I used to do, I didn't do that very well, let me do it again, then I would spend a little bit more time meticulously doing it, but I'm kind of just walking through it quickly. I'm going to do that same process, make those same adjustments, and it goes back to what I already adjusted it to for the other eye, so the program is a little bit intuitive as well. It kind of knows what I want because I just did that. So the eyes are a little bit more in focus there. So we're getting a little closer to that. Let me change the coloring as well. Let me show you how I do that. It's just sort of a process of what I go through. I'm going to do an adjustment. I'm going to, for this one, it's quite a bit of coloring that I want to change. So I'll change the color balance. Take it a little, see how I'm going sort of away from the yellow, and I want to go towards the blue, but I don't want to go too much for this picture. Trying to just feeling it out. I think I like a little bit more rather than less. It's not a science, really. You sort of just have to make the adjustments and see what you like. I think I like that. And then I'm also going to, since I'm here, change some brightness and contrast of it. These are all sort of things I'm doing after I take it. And I'm doing this kind of quickly just to show you the process that I go through for each picture. Just stop it around there. And so it gets a little closer to it. I'm not quite there yet. But obviously it's considerably different than how I started it. Let me do just a couple more things, just a couple more adjustments I'll make quickly. change. I'm changing levels here. Levels is kind of a difficult concept to explain on a video while I'm doing it, but I'm just sort of changing, making small, minute changes, but they actually make a considerable amount of difference when you compare images to each other. And then let's get rid of this little spot here on his face, like that. And then I'm going to actually go ahead, one last thing I'll do quickly. If I was doing this for a client, I probably would be a bit more meticulous with it, but just kind of trying to show the process quickly. I'm going to go ahead and sharpen the whole thing a little bit. Go ahead and do that one more time. There we go. I like that. A little bit more. So I'll show you. So it's a long process, and there's several things that I do during it. But some of that you just kind of play around with, and some of it you get used to doing it on several pictures. So you kind of intuitively do it when I'm actually taking it. So if you see, the coloring has changed quite a bit. This was the original coloring, obviously, on a different shot, but I just kind of wanted to compare it to the coloring that I've changed now. Kind of end with I just kind of want to reflect on the fact that when I take pictures like this, there's a lot going on. There's him happening, his movement, his eyes. There's lots of things. You know, he shifts around when he sits there. There's the background. There's the light, and some of that I adjust afterwards, and some of it's happening as I'm taking the picture. And again, there's the edited version that I've done. So yeah, that kind of just shows you sort of what I walk through when I do something like this, the process that I walk through, and gives you a taste for it.